Ostraconophobia. It's the fear of hermit crabs. I was a bit skeptical at first. I've heard rumors of people who have nightmares about their hermit crabs being massive, and I thought that was really funny. But I mean, I can see it. They're a little bit like spiders, how they scuttle around. I've held hermit crabs, but I've never owned one. But anyway, I didn't never really got why people were afraid of them. I don't get that. And I don't know why there would be a fear of them. I mean, I kind of do. I don't know. But anyway, I was thinking that I'm not afraid of hermit crabs. I've held them a lot. I think they're really cute. I love hermit crabs. So I was like, what would make me afraid of a hermit crab? And I decided that it would be a massive hermit crab, one that could destroy a city. You know, because they'll scuttle around all awkwardly and stuff. But if they were destroying a city while doing that, that would be really scary. So that's what I decided to go for. And I also decided not to have it destroying the city at that moment. Like, it's pretty obvious that it's going to happen. Despite the military's efforts, I'm going to draw in some helicopters here. But I just thought it would be fun to have it exploding through the water, because it's just such a colossal titan of a hermit crab. So these helicopters are pretty small and arduous to draw, but I think they add a nice effect, because those are right next to the hermit crabs, so you really get a sense of scale knowing how big a helicopter is. But there was one problem that I ran into, and it was I just decided to go do some research on actual attack helicopters, and I was like, mine do not look like that at all. And I could have left it at that, but I decided, no, these are not right. And I thought it would be so much cooler if I tried to accurately draw like an Apache helicopter or something. So that's what I did. I looked up some images and I decided to redraw all of my little helicopters. And then I decided that I would draw a couple big ones, or not big ones, but ones that are closer to the camera. So you can think that we're maybe on a news helicopter or a blimp, just to really emphasize how big it is. So I'm drawing some attack helicopters flying up in front of us, just outside of the range of the camera, just like showing that everyone's going at this crab that's just going to destroy the planet. So these two helicopters, they took me a lot longer than I thought they would. I will admit I was using a reference image for both of them, because I've never drawn a helicopter before. But I thought they turned out really well, and I think they have a really, really cool effect. So yeah. So now I'm just finishing up the pencil work, and then now we can get started with inking, which is probably, well, yes, it's definitely my favorite part of doing a drawing. That's why I usually prefer to do hatch work in my art instead of coloring stuff, which I am planning on coloring this one, because I thought it would be kind of cool. It just gives me off a little bit of cartoony vibes. So as I'm drawing the crab, I decided to add a couple barnacles and just make its shell look really gnarly, you know, with lots of cracks and all of that, because it's been through a lot, you know. It's a giant crab, you know what they get into. So then I decided also to put this cool like spinning effect on the helicopter blades. I thought that looked really awesome. But yeah, just sit back and enjoy the inking. As I finished up the buildings, I was trying to decide on what to do with the windows because I was honestly terrified of doing these. But eventually I decided just to create a couple of different variations. So I've got this square one, and I had just a couple lines, and then I would just repeat that, and then until none of them were touching, until I got this nice city thing. So my sweaty hands were already making the paper warp, so I decided to tape it down before erasing and coloring it. And for the coloring, for the crab's shell, I decided to make it kind of a beige, fleshy, pinkish looking thing. I'm going to be the first one to admit that I am kind of bad at alcohol markers. I just bought this pack and I like them, I like how they work. I'm still figuring it out. Most of my drawings, when I use them, they just kind of end up as me just kind of layering it on and hoping that it all blends together nicely. I've watched a couple videos trying to figure out how to do it better, but nothing really works. I might not just have like nice enough markers, but overall I thought it started out really well. The shading all was working out, and the color gradients and stuff. The shell I think looks a little plain, but I think that works because I really wanted the details on it to stand out rather than the color of it. I just wanted it to be a nice, simple wash with a couple, like, pinkish accents, just to make it a little bit more interesting to look at. As for the crab's body and claws, I was using the reference image for the coloring, and I noticed these cool purple dots, so I decided to add those. It also had a really pinkish, fleshy undertone. Here's exactly what I was saying. I just start layering it on, hoping it looks good, and I think this one turned out better than I thought it would. It does look a little bit like too dark in contrast to the shell, but I think that works because it would be under a lot of shadow being inside of the shell. So I decided to go for a darker. I basically used the same colors as I used for the shell, but to differentiate the two, I decided to make them darker. I decided to just do the explosions, and I used my alcohol colorless blender to kind of just take out a little white spot in the middle to make it look a little bit brighter, and I think those turned out well. The helicopters, just as annoying as they were to draw, they were equally as annoying to color. They felt really simple, but at the same time I didn't want to make them really cartoony, and overall I think they turned out well. I think they could have been blended together a little bit more though, but overall I think they turned out really well, but they were not nearly the worst part of this coloring process, which is probably my least favorite of the whole drawing part of this drawing. After I finished up coloring all of these smaller pieces, it was time to move on to the big washes, like the beach, the sky, the water, and then just the buildings. The sand turned out okay, but then as soon as I started touching the grass with any of my markers, it started falling apart. So this is when I started just throwing as many colors on it as I could and hoping that it turned out. For the windows, I decided to just go simple, make them all blue, and then color them with a wash of gray, giving it a little bit of a darker gradient closer to the camera to signify closer. For the water, I wanted to give it white tips, so I just added a little bit of gray to make it stand out a little bit more. And this is where it really started going bad. I just kept on adding stuff, and it kept on getting darker and darker, and it eventually ended up okay, but I think it definitely could have been better if I got a second chance. That's something that scares me about alcohol markers, is you can't do anything about it if you mess up, except for smother it in other ink. So for the sky, I decided to add a darker gradient near the top, and then that was it.